Second half of the podcast, second half of the episode, the first guest of the brand new year, my editor, my writer friend from the Rough Riders state, from Grand Forks, a big University of North Dakota fan, Eric Burton. Dude, thanks for coming on, and thanks for talking about this sport that we're all crazy about. And you guys up there, up in the Rough Riders state, are particularly interested in, because you guys get, I think, the best fan support really in the whole sport. You get the best attendance, for sure.
Yeah, we've been leading the nation, incidentally, since Wisconsin used to be the number one attendance draw until they kind of went on a skid, and they haven't been very good for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And UND's taken over the attendance lead, and we're averaging about 10 to 11,000 a year. Or a game, I mean.
Yeah.
And with the a little bit of a downturn in the play on the ice, the attendance has started to go down a little bit at UND too.
Yeah, you were telling me before we got on that it's an involved fan base that loves its team and has one of the best buildings, probably the best building in the sport. But it's an antsy program with just how, I think you said it, mediocre it's been as of after winning a national title in 2016.
Yeah, there's a few things involved in that. That 2015, 2016 team, I would have been surprised if they didn't win a title that year. They were loaded. I mean, every line was good. The decors, a lot of those guys end up in the NHL, or they're playing some level of professional hockey. There's a lot of, like Brock Besser was on that team.
Yeah.
You know what he's done with the Vancouver Canucks. He was a candidate for the Rookie of the Year until he got hurt at the end.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of talent. I mean, they just roll lines. And right now, the biggest problem for UND is who's going to put the puck in the net. They're like doing everything but score. I mean, the penalty killing's a little atrocious at times, but I think they've been doing the right things. They're just not finishing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest problems, I think, is the junior class has really not lived up to the billing. There are a lot of good players that are younger. The freshman and sophomore class of this team are very talented. And there's not a lot of passengers for the first 2 years. I think it's just a matter of time for some of these young kids to start putting the puck in the net.
Yeah,
hopefully it'll start sooner rather than later.
Yeah, the goals for North Dakota is currently ranked 45th. They're tied with Northern Michigan at averaging 2.52 goals per game. Notables that they're behind Air Force, New Hampshire, and Brown, and also behind Boston University, which is I've heard some people say that epic game, the one that I think you were at that game in Fargo when it went to double overtime and there was a broken pane of glass and there was a very controversial offsides call. And I don't know how fair it is possibly to say that a game sank a program or sent them into a poor direction. But do you think it's fair to say that thriller in the regional tournament in Fargo against BU kind of set them on a poor course that they're on right now?
I can tell you that the minute that game ended, there was agents for Besser and Tyson Jones right away. I mean, they were like, the minute that they walked off the ice, they were on them. They wanted them signed. And I think one of the biggest things to happen right away was Jones got signed by the Avalanche right away. And everybody thought, he wasn't going to be a one and done. He'd play another season at least. And it was a surprise. So those are the last two prolific players UND has had on their team. Obviously, Drake Kajula, and the CBS line with Nick Schmaltz, who's now with the Phoenix Coyotes, or Arizona Coyotes, I'm sorry.
Don't worry, I mess that up all the time too, yeah.
We've not had a player like that. They have not. There's a lot of second and third line players on that team. Someone needs to step up and start scoring. And they just never, after that yeah, he did kind of end him because the next season after that, Christian Willannon signed with the Senators. So, I mean, you lost a lot of talent. I mean, it's kind of like BU. If you look at who they had on their team, you look around the NHL now and you're like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
I mean, you got, couple kids playing for the Bruins,
mm-hmm.
and McAvoy and JFK.
Yeah, and Matt Grizzly.
Same thing. Yeah, he's a really nice surprise, too. I really like his game.
I mean, I always liked him.
It's the same thing that's happened to BU, and UND is really kind of the same thing. There's been a talent drain. It's hard to find
mm-hmm.
blue chip players like that. I mean, they just don't grow on trees.
Yeah.
And college hockey right now, the field is kind of really evened out. You got every kid out there's got 3 or 4 teams after him that's got any amount of talent. So
mm-hmm.
it's all about researching players, and not all of them are going to pan out like you think. And I think maybe that happened a little bit. I mean, we're getting good goaltending from Adam Scheel, and we're getting great, defensive scoring from Jacob Bernard Doctor. And the D-core on UND is very, very solid. I mean, Mayfield, I think it's a forward play. They're not scoring, and I think they might be gripping the sticks a little tightly. I mean, they were one play away from a couple of seconds away from tying Denver, and Denver's above the standards. They all played them the whole weekend. So, I mean, this team could play with anybody. It's just a matter of getting that confidence and scoring goals. And someone's got to step up, start scoring goals.
Yeah, the leading goal scorer for North Dakota is Rhett Gardner, who has had a very strange line that I'm looking at here. He's got 8 goals, and he has 1 assist for 9 total points, which is the Dallas Star draft pick has had kind of a... Is it fair to say that Gardner's had kind of an up-and-down season and an up-and-down career with you guys up in Grand Forks?
Rhett Gardner is an interesting player. The Dallas Stars really wanted to sign him last year, and he decided to come back. And he's not scored a point in 8 games. And for a while there, he was doing really well. You can't only gauge his play by his points. He's one of the best. I think he's one of the top faceoff guys in college hockey.
Mm-hmm.
And he kills penalties. He does all the things, that don't really get noticed. He's very gritty. He's one of the toughest. I've been covering UND for about 7-8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he's by far one of the toughest players I've ever witnessed in college hockey. I mean, he came here a man. He's even got stronger.
Wow. And
when people check him, you can just hear the thud, and it's not pretty. And he plays banged up, and he'll do anything. He's a team player. He's the next man up. He embraces, playing the defensive forward. I think, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, because I don't have it in front of me, he was the NCHC's defensive forward last year. So
I'd believe
he's a very good player.
Yeah, I'd believe it. I don't know offhand whether or not he was, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if that were the case. I mean, I also feel like I should know maybe part of the reason that North Dakota has struggled a bit is because the Hawks are playing in absolutely the hardest conference in college hockey. And I don't think there's really a close argument for that one in the NCHC.
Yeah, I think that's a safe. In the conference, there's really there's not much between. Like UND's in 5th place right now. They're separated by 3 points from Denver, and I mean, really, any one of those teams could move up in the standings. St. Cloud is probably the best team in the conference, but they have some issues in goaltending. Their starting goalie, I don't even think he's over 90%. But then they're scoring a ton of goals, so you really don't have to worry about it. I mean, you can win 6-5, 6-4 if you have to. Well, Western is well suited to do well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always with St. Cloud, they run a goalie tandem with Jeff Smith and David Rennick, and they split them about 50-50. I think they're one of the only, maybe 2-3 teams that can do that. And it's kind of interesting. I've been wondering if a tandem works well, because for a regular season in the National Hockey League, I think a goalie tandem can work exceptionally well. I mean, I think it's pretty easy to notice that that Detroit ran for a number of years. They ran a proper goalie tandem. You don't see many in this current age in college hockey, and it's not like the defense is letting up that much for St. Cloud. They're 11th in the country at 2-1-5. They're also contending with Denver and Duluth, who are at 10th and 7th respectively in just defensive ability. North Dakota is tied for 20th with your great and beloved friends in the Gophers back over in Minnesota.
Yeah, they're having it down here too.
Yeah.
At the regional, did you hear the story on this one?
No, I don't think I did.
That Moscow was going to be the coach of the Gophers, and they some people think that the team was preoccupied with the rumors of him leaving right after the NCAAs were over, and incidentally they got bounced by Air Force, I believe.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was maybe 2 days later they're announcing him as the coach of the Gophers. So obviously there's a little animosity. He took some recruits with him, and they have not done. They're taking a lot of penalties, and they're having issues. They're not really, which is kind of surprising. Bob Motzko teams skate really hard. They take little penalties. I mean, they're very fast, skilled, finesse teams that will just skate past you. They don't get into all the extra stuff after during the whistles. And this year they've struggled. But he doesn't have a full contingent of his recruits and bodies on that team. But St. Cloud has not missed a beat. They're 7-1-2 after 10 games. Obviously, we have 14 more games, so there's a lot of hockey left. But I did notice was it Northeastern that handed it to them when they made a trip out east?
Yeah, Northeastern. So St. Cloud played 2 games here east. They played against Boston College and thoroughly slaughtered them 7-0. And it was not even remotely close from puck drop until the end of that game. They then went over to Matthews Arena in, I still think, probably the best game I've seen all season. And it ended up being a 3-2 victory for Northeastern when they came back late and scored, I think, 1 goal in the second and 2 in the third to end up winning that game. So, yeah, that's the only team. St. Cloud has lost 2 other games. They're 15-3-2 overall. Their losses came against Northeastern early on in the season. Then they had a long winning streak. They tied twice against Miami in a 30th of November and 1st of December series. They lost badly to Union 7-2, and then they got killed. Beat Robert Morris and then split with Duluth. 3-1 loss at Amsoil and 4-2 win also at Amsoil. So
we were kind of laughing about St. Cloud State got beat by the goalie that's going to play for UND. Got beat by the under-18 team, then lost to Union. And that did open my eyes because I remember looking at that. I'm like, holy cow. And Union's been pretty good this year. They're recovering nicely.
Yeah.
Very defensive, physical teams.
Yeah,
I got to see them a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Well, Union, a team that I got to see play against Northeastern, and that's Union's kind of on the bubble at this point. If we're going to take a look at the pairwise, which I mentioned earlier on in the show, I really do think that we're hitting that point now where the pairwise becomes a lot more relevant. Union is sitting 17th in the pairwise rankings right now. So they're right on the edge of being in the tournament or not. It's actually the exact same position as where North Dakota was last season before falling unceremoniously out of the tournament because everyone who was on the bubble and needed to win the conference in order to get in did, except for North Dakota, basically.
Yeah. They had to beat St. Cloud to get in, and they lost in overtime. In
the consolation game of that tournament, right?
No, in the opening game they had St. Cloud. St. Cloud had UND's number last season.
Oh.
Yeah, you know what's worth going to is Coach Bennett for a Union. His press conferences are unbelievable. I mean, he holds nothing back. In fact, I would pay money to watch him talk. He's a throwback to the old days, and I would hate to have him upset with me if I was a player on his team. When they don't do, UND played him out there one year in January, and he was very, as a matter of fact, and you just let him talk. He's a gem.
Yeah.
He's kind of an imposing figure too. Big guy, but I always liked him. I always liked his team. They play a 200-foot game, and they play the game the right way, and they're really clean. They came over to UND, and I think it was a couple of years ago, and they beat UND at their own game. So
yeah,
I've been impressed with them as a program.
Yeah, it's a fun program to get to watch, particularly it's a school of 2,000 people, and I always say that college hockey is pretty fun because a school with 2,000 people can win a national championship. That will never be the case in football or basketball under virtually any circumstance. So, you've got some interesting. I'm sure that watching your guys go up to Canisius of all places and end up falling off and really getting 2 games stolen from you by great goaltender play by Canisius. That had to sting a bit because I remember seeing some people in the North Dakota Twitterverse being upset and not particularly thrilled.
We've seen this game before. I don't know if it right now it's a Pairwise killer. I remember it was a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. They went out to Vancouver and played in an exhibition series. They lost to University of Vancouver in a game, and then they ended up going to the Frozen Four. Obviously, that was under Hextall. But this year, that could be the kryptonite that kills them this year. They went out and lost to Mercyhurst the next weekend. I think they were swept. And I think one of the games was like 6-2. I'm going off the top of my head, but it wasn't pretty.
Yeah.
But their goaltenders, I watched both games on the web, and I thought at first that all the shots were from the perimeter. And Brad Slosman of the Herald had posted the shot chart online, and they had most of their shots inside the slot, and their goalies just had the game of their life. I mean, UND is one of those teams that they've lost the majority of their games when they've outshot the opponent, if that tells you anything. Before last weekend, they were scoring like 7.7% of their shots.
Yeah,
that's not a great shooting percentage at all. So.
Well, that Friday night game, Friday, January 4th, at the Harbor Center in Buffalo, which is the practice rink for the Sabres and the home rink for Canisius. North Dakota outshot Canisius 33-14 and ended up losing 3-1. The second night, they outshot Canisius 49-16. They lost 2-1.
That's unbelievable.
That's just a killer. I mean, how do you bounce back from a game like that?
And they played the Tigers the next week in the Ralph, and went to overtime both games.
And they won both games.
They won them in overtime, and
yeah.
Obviously, I think the Tigers were a lot tougher team, but Canisius, I don't know what they did. They kind of packed around the goaltenders too. It's hard to get shots inside. I mean, and they've scored 9 goals since, I know it was December or something. Brad is putting up. I was looking at it too, and like Nick Jones has been on the ice for like 7 of those 9 goals.
Oh, geez.
It's just unbelievable. I've never seen anything like this. North Dakota usually has a forward or two, a blue blood that puts the puck in the net, and whenever he's on the ice, people are looking for him, like a Besser or Tyson Yost or just Drake Kajula. Those are the ones that are more familiar lately. Or even a Christian or Atlanta. This year, they really don't scare anybody on their power play. Last week they did score a goal on the power play and did get a shorty. But I think they're going to have to win games by, grinding it out, keeping the shots down. They do a pretty good job of boxing out most of the time when they're on the ice defensively. And the biggest problem, I think, is they've given up a lot. They were ranked about 40th on the power play recently, and that's not very typical of a UND hockey team. Mm-hmm. So, that is an area of concern. The power, I'd say the penalty kill, power play, and just secondary scoring is really holding them back.
Yeah,
that's the most important part.
Yeah, to fill out your point, North Dakota on the power play, a efficiency rate of 161. So that's a 16.1% success rate on the power play. They are currently in the same ballpark as UMass, Lowell, American International, and Mercyhurst. That's
they dropped the percentage point on their power play then too, because they're at 17 something or 18 last week. Oh God.
Yeah. And for the penalty kill, they're ranked 35th with a 79.7% success rate. They're just a couple points above BU. They're about a point behind UConn. Michigan and Ohio State are also in that same kind of category. And penalty kill is a kind of interesting stat. Duluth is your national leader with a 92% penalty kill, which that's a Sandelin team for you there, that they're going to be superb on their defensive assignments and responsibilities. Do you guys have to play? Does North Dakota have to play Duluth anymore this season? They do. You guys.
They got one more series with them.
Yeah, at the Ralph.
The last one was a nice bag series.
Yeah.
Scott Sandelin team, they're very physical, and when UND and Minnesota Duluth get on the ice, it's a nasty game, a nasty series.
Is there a lot of dislike between the two programs?
Scott Sandelin used to play hockey for UND, and then was the coach when they won the 2000 title, and then went over to Duluth. And Brad Berringham are pretty good friends. Mm-hmm. But when they get on the ice, there's no friendship there. Wow. I would say that now with UND moving to the NCHC, Denver and Duluth are Denver and Duluth are UND's top rivals, along with St. Cloud, obviously. But they just don't like each other. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was like 2 or 3 majors. Like the one guy, Wolf, the defenseman for Duluth, he got thrown out of both games. And, Kawaguchi got a minor or a major for spearing, and it was an ugly series. There was a lot of penalty kills. And
wait, they threw him out of the first game, and they let him come back and play in the second one?
Well, it was just a game misconduct.
Oh, okay.
Game disqualification. He was right back out again the next night. And he's got one more to go before he's after you get 3 game disqualifications, you're out for the next game.
Yeah.
And he's got to play like. In fact, he's been thrown out of, I think, 3 of the last 3 games he played. He played against North Dakota. Oof. So whatever happens, he loses it. But he's a good defenseman too. He's very physical. Very they're a very gritty, heavy hockey team.
Yeah.
They're not going to lose a lot of games. They're not going to get blown out because they seal it off when they go for the win. That's what they did last year in the tourney too.
Yeah, it's what they did.
They get to that. They get that lead and they hold on to it.
They did that 3 times. They won 2-1 games in the NCAA tournament. They did it to Air Force when, to be fair, Air Force was banged up and isn't known to be a outscore the world kind of team. They're a similar style, but Duluth had enough offensive talent to get by. They shut it down against Ohio State, and they shut it down against Notre Dame in the national title game, which I'm sure had to make NCHC fans happy to shut up the Big Ten. The Big Ten sent 3 teams to last year's Frozen Four, and the one team from the NCHC ended up being the champion. I'm sure that had to feel good for. Well, actually, I don't know, because do you ever like to see if it promotes your conference, but it's a big rival. Does that make you feel good? Like, for me, if I'm a BU person, and if I see Boston College go on and get a win in the national tournament or something like that, it actually does promote the conference, but it's BC. It's my big rival that wins. You know? It's just kind of a funny feeling.
I understand what you're talking about. Because, like, I can stomach BU winning, but Boston College, no matter what, is offensive. UND's had a bunch of games with them during the early 2000s in the national tournament.
Yeah, pair them for the national title.
Yeah. If BU's playing BC, I'm always cheering for the Terriers. In fact, BC owned UND for a couple of games. I asked Jerry York. I said, what is it that your team seems to always get up for UND? And he was very gracious guy, and he was very quick to point out that we haven't won them all, and that you guys had our number. That's what he said. UND had BC's number 2 at times, and he had a lot of. He's very respectful, very nice guy. I think he's a gem. He's always got something.
I agree.
Really to say, and he's a great press conference after the game.
Absolutely.
And he always gave credit. They drubbed UND like 6-2 during one of those tournaments early in the season, and he's quick to point out, man, that's a good hockey team over there. And like, holy cow, you just smoked UND. He's like, oh no. He says these will turn around in the future. And it's kind of ironic that Boston College is like for the last 26 non-conference games.
It's amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah. They haven't won a non-conference game since November 13th, 2016, and that came against Arizona State it's not this year's Arizona State team. It was a first year in Division 1 by playing a Division 1 schedule, Arizona State, which is really bad. So, yeah, that's kind of concerning if I'm an Eagles fan. And I've said it before a bunch of times on the podcast that somehow Boston College pulls voodoo and is 7-2-2 in conference, yet their overall record is 7-10-2, which means that they are 0-8 outside of Hockey East this season. I don't understand what they're doing over on Chestnut Hill. I genuinely don't understand.
This is what I tell you. For all those people that are enjoying Boston College's a little downturn in the non-conference, it will come around. That's a proud program. They'll be back. They got a lot to offer to recruit. So, I mean, the history and the program. And I mean, who wouldn't want to – if you wanted to play in a big city, Boston would be a nice place to play. And if you're a blue-blood hockey player, eventually they'll start turning the wins again. Everybody's like, oh, my God, he's back. But do you know if we had an NCAA tournament today, Boston University, Boston College, Michigan, North Dakota, Minnesota, and I think Michigan State, Wisconsin would all be out of the NCAA tournament. We could have a college hockey like NIT, and it would be all the blue bloods of college hockey.
Yeah,
that program. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would be crazy. Throw New Hampshire and in that category as well, and that would be absolutely crazy for how that would end up working itself out. Brief pause. Back in a moment. I mean, I honestly am fine with there being some more, some more different programs, some more stories. It's nice to see Northeastern get some wins. It's nice to see UMass get some wins. I don't mind the parity, which sounds rich coming from a BU person, or sounds, contradictory, where why wouldn't a BU person want to just win all the time? But I like there being balance, and I like there being, multiple different, programs and places. And, I mean, the NCHC has had some parity of its own. I mean, 2015, for example, North Dakota is one of 2 teams from that conference. The other one that made the Frozen Four that year was Nebraska-Omaha, which is just kind of crazy that in your conference, Nebraska happens to have a team out there. And I look at them and I think, how did they end up playing this sport, and how did they end up playing in this conference?
It used to be in the old CCHA, and then they're actually not that old of a program. They've been 20 years, maybe.
Yeah, they started off the late 90s, I think. Yeah.
Late 90s, and I remember they played at an older rink. I don't remember the name of it. Which the USHL team played there too, and they had taken the ice out, and they had to put it back in because they actually won in the tournament. They beat, I don't remember who they beat, but they had to put the ice back in the arena so they could play, advance on into the CCHA tournament. They have not made a conference tournament like the finals. At the championship, it's either the Final Five or the frozen face-off since they've been in the NCHC or the WCHA.
Oh.
That's incredible. They have not made the finals.
Oh, my. Well,
But they made the tournament that year anyway. They were a good hockey team, and they lost. Because UND lost to Boston University, and I think it was Providence. I remember correctly, was one of the last teams in the NCAA playoff that year, and they won the national title in Boston.
That game pains me. That game...
Yes, I know.
Thanks. Why must I constantly be... There were older episodes of this show when guys would joke with me about that national title game being producing their favorite moment or favorite GIF to come out of college hockey, and I just think, why must you take joy at my expense and pain? Because I don't think there's a game that has ever affected a program like that day did to BU people. And I'm very sure that after all of the madness that had gone down the 2 days before, when Eichel was somewhat superhuman against North Dakota, I am sure that you guys did not mind at all watching Providence win that national championship.
I do remember that game. I think a lot of college hockey fans, Jack Eichel was by far one of the best players in the country that year, and he just blew away. I mean, they were so good. I just remember, I wish we could have seen him one more year before he hit the NHL. And he's still good in the NHL too. And he was just a special player, and he he was good. I was actually surprised that Providence beat BU that year because they had come to the Ralph, and I think UND being the first night, and they tied the second night. And Flossman was on Twitter, as he always just talked about the pairwise and stuff. And I think that tie was the reason they actually made the NCAA tournament, but they were unbelievable. And
Nate Lehman
they were blowing teams out.
Nate Lehman laid the groundwork for Bennett to succeed him at Union. So for your appreciation of Union College and that team, I think you can actually give a lot of credit to Nate Lehman, the current Providence head coach, as well.
Yeah, he's a good coach. I'm surprised he's not. I don't know or have any information, but I would say he's got to be one of the next ones up to the NHL if they come looking for a college coach. Cause
Bennett or Lehman?
Lehman. He's a good coach.
Yeah. See, I don't know if he would. I don't know if he would want to move on up to the pros or if he's happy where he is in college. I just don't know what I would expect out of him, because I guess part of it is a almost romantic idealization of wanting there to be program coaches, who stay in and develop college players, which I don't know how many more of those we're going to have. I know Jim Madigan at Northeastern is going to be one of those for a long time. He's committed to that school and that program. I don't know how long Brad Barry stays around at UND, and I did see, especially with Hackstall being the first guy to make the transition from college to the pros, albeit a little bit unsuccessfully with his recent disappointment in Philadelphia, which, by the way, I got to ask you about. Were you sad to see Hackstall not really work out with the Flyers?
we were talking about this the other day on Twitter. I don't know if you saw it, but what is the Flyers have won 4 games since they fired Hacksaw? And
out of how many have they played since then?
It's got to have been 13, 14 games.
Oh, jeez.
They were, last time I looked, they were like 4-9 or something. It wasn't pretty.
Oof.
They beat the Wild finally.
Well.
And you know what? I got to cover Dave Hacksaw for, 3, 4, 5 years. I can't remember how long it's been.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 5 years, but I remember when he got the call at Philadelphia, no one leaked that story. It was amazing because it just happened. Boom. Hacksaw was leaving to go coach in the NHL. And even our beat writer here for UND, I don't think he heard about it until that day. I don't know how they kept that a secret, but they asked him 3 times, and he didn't want to leave here. And here's ironically, Hacksaw lived like a house down from Bradbury, just south of town, and south end of town here.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think Brad is happy. He's coached in the NHL as an assistant. He's been a player scout. I know they do. They love him up in Winnipeg. I go to Winnipeg quite a bit, running these Canadians, and people from Manitoba that are hockey fans have a very high opinion of Bradbury.
Mm-hmm. And
I could see him coaching in another place, but he's from UND. He's got his house here. He's 52, 53. So I don't know. I know he's asked him if he's thought about coaching at another level, but he's done it. And I think the biggest question is, where's Dave Hacksaw going to go?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there's a lot of college hockey programs are drooling at the idea of hiring. Somebody like Hacksaw is very good with young players.
Mm-hmm.
One of his biggest, probably the thing that people don't think, oh my God, he's just grumpy all the time. And that's not true, When he's when he's being interviewed by the media, he's got his persona, and he's not real like a outgoing person, but off the the recorder, he's a very personal guy. He cares a lot about his players. Rarely ever does he berate them in a press conference. All that he believes that that's something that should be done in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'll never, even when he coached the Flyers, you didn't see him badmouth his players. He's a team guy, team first guy, and Brad Berry's very similar to Hacksaw. One of the first things I noticed is they say a lot of the same things, and they're about the program. No player is ever bigger than the program.
Yeah.
And I just think it vindicated Hacksaw by Flyers fans are insufferable when it comes to the Flyers. They just didn't understand Dave Hacksaw, and I could see him coaching again in the AHL or the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
Or being an assistant. I mean, he's a very systems guy. He's very defense, and I noticed his Flyers played the same way they did at UND. He's like dump and chase, and defense first, and sometimes the defensemen don't have the okay to go, and they're more cautious. But I think he's a very good coach, a very solid guy. I think a lot of times, the way he presents himself, he's very stoic. He's very, to himself. He's not real, not like when he's around the team and stuff. He doesn't seem really outgoing. But I used to love when Shireen Chotsky would interview him on the bench with a CBS broadcast. And I'm like, oh my God. The first time we saw that, we're like, oh my. But you know what? He was the first one to embrace through these doors that UND does. They have a weekly program about the team, and he was all on board about that because it helps, promote the team. So, I mean, I really was a Dave Hacksaw fan. So, yeah, when he was fired, I was kind of sad. I felt bad for him. Incidentally, my sister was best friends with his wife during high school.
Oh.
And his wife's dad owned a McDonald's in Bemidji, and my sister and Aaron worked together, and they were really good friends. So, I mean, it's kind of funny, but you're really only 3 feet away, that separation.
Yeah.
And I really, really hope he'll do well again. He's a very hardworking person, a farm boy from Western Canada. So I think he'll land on his feet, and I think he doesn't have to work. He's got another year on his contract, so he's got $2 million reasons to take his time picking his next job opportunity.
That's that we could only get to that position where we could just sit and collect our $2 million paycheck and relax for a little bit while we regroup.
I can't see him sitting idle for very long. He's a very hardworking person.
Yeah.
When we used to joke about after a loss when Hacksaw, hey Brad, you asked the question. You go, Brad Sloss with it. You asked the question. You can massage a question out of him, but I see somebody asking a dumb question. He would get that surly snap, but he'd still answer the question.
Mm-hmm.
As a young blogger, I had a really dumb question. It was about a question about, do you read the message boards? And somebody on the message board had said this. And he said, well, if people get their message from message board, that's the first problem. And then he answered my question, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm that blogger, But you know what? After that, I always made sure to pick my questions carefully.
Yeah.
But when you talk to him coming into the ring, he was just like, and how you doing? How's life today? But he was just, when that microphone and the cameras came on, he just had that Hacksaw persona. The Hacksaw stare is really intimidating. So,
yeah.
And I liked watching him coach the Flyers. It was his kind of team, the Broad Street Bullies. They're always tough. They're always, they play on the edge. And I think he was set up to fail there. That roster, the goaltending, they had never had a good goaltending as long as he was a coach. The defensemen, outside of a couple of players, has been suspect. They have a great forward group that's not bad. I really like Wayne Simmons and, Guru and Konecny, I say his name right. They're really good forwards. I mean, they got a decent forward group. They just don't have defensemen and goaltending. And you can't win without a good goaltender. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
You can't outscore an NHL team and give up a bunch.
I mean, it's kind of the same way I'd say in the college game. I really do think that the best teams consistently have the best goaltenders. I mean, UMass has two guys who they can roll in net, Matt Murray and Philip Lindbergh. And Lindbergh won gold at the World Juniors for the Finns, and he's their backup goaltender. Quinnipiac, Quinnipiac has two guys, Andrew Shortridge, who's been just amazing and has the nation's best save percentage, and Keith Petruzzelli, who's a Red Wings draft pick, just as an example. It's the same thing in college that you need. Hockey becomes frequently the game of goalie, and it works out pretty decently for those who have one, and for those who don't, well, that's just kind of unfortunate, isn't it?
It's kind of neat to see a team from Western Mass do real well. That's a beautiful area out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, during the winter time, it can get a little bit, where's all the civilization? Because the perception going from Boston to Western Massachusetts is that you're fleeing civilization. And I don't mean to be rude, but there is something to that, because you go from it being very full, very crowded, to being, oh my God, where am I going? And I mean, I love the people at UMass, and I'm very happy that I was correct in my analysis. And I'm happy that, because I've been saying for a while I thought UMass was going to be great, but I didn't think that Cale Makar would turn into what he did. But excuse me, but yeah, he and that whole program have just been incredible this whole year. I'm excited to get to see them this weekend, and twice against Northeastern at home and on the road. And you've got have you got games to cover this weekend?
I will. Well, they're going to Omaha, Nebraska to play the Mavericks.
That's right. Yeah.
I'll be watching. I'll probably be following the game on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I have to take my daughter to a Fargo Forts game for Boy Scouts.
Oh, cool.
And we'll get to see some future college hockey players.
Mm-hmm.
And Saturday night, I'll be in my bunker where I'm at right now, watching the game on NCHC TV. But as of late, UND's, they went 4-2 against Omaha last year. They've been kind of down since Dean Blaze was unceremoniously sent into retirement. And their coach is one of the younger ones in college hockey.
Mm-hmm.
What's he, like 37?
Yes, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's real young. And obviously it's going to take the team 3 or 4 years to reload. I think when you get your own players in, it takes so long to get all your own players. That's why I know their fan base is a little antsy down there. They're not doing real well this year. Mm-hmm. They're, what are they, 6-12?
Yeah,
I'm looking at my thing.
Yeah, 6-12-2. 2-7-1 in the NCHC.
They split with Western Michigan, which
is pretty good.
They can beat good teams.
Yeah.
They're inconsistent. And their goaltending's horrendous. Oh. I don't care what anybody says. They have not. Yeah, oh, God.
Yeah.
He's had a tough go.
Sometimes stuff goes down and doesn't really work for you. Yeah, their head coach, Mike Gabinet, he graduated from, it doesn't list his age, just that he graduated from UNO in 2004, which means that he's
not out of the program that long.
Yeah, he's not quite the youngest. David Carl of Denver is the youngest coach in college at 29 years old. So Gabinet isn't quite that young. But by the way, isn't it amazing how well Denver transitioned from Jim Montgomery to David Carl? And I know you weren't really a big Montgomery fan either, but still, that's a pretty good transition that they made.
You know what? I have a rookie card at home somewhere from the NHL. I didn't particularly care the way. Sometimes I think he's a little tough on his players in the media, and maybe a little smug. He's a good hockey coach, and he's doing all right in Dallas as a head coach, and I think he set the program up pretty good. Mm-hmm. They got some great players in Denver, and good goaltenders. I was impressed with both of their goaltenders were real good. One kid was hurt for the longest time, mm-hmm. and I just think they got a really good core of players, even though they lost. Like, that one line was unbelievable.
Yeah, they lost a big group of their players, and they're still rolling. Yeah, they're still rolling in a big way so far this season. Eric Burton, my editor with Inside Hockey. I'm sorry for keeping you up late at night with how it takes to get my stories done, but I appreciate you taking all the time to edit all my stories. I appreciate you taking the time to pay a visit to Puck University. I appreciate you coming on. I hope that you'll be able to come around a couple more times before we wrap this whole year up, assuming that...
Yeah, I don't mind the late night calls. I'm a night owl. I'm really a night owl. I only sleep like 6-7 hours a night anyway. And I'll come on anytime. I don't mind.
Yeah, I commend you.
I got a bit of a cold here this week, but
you'll be fine.
I don't mind.
Yeah. You can follow him on Twitter at Goon48. He writes about the NHL for the Sports Daily. He writes about college hockey for both Inside Hockey and the Sports Daily. Writes about whatever hockey stuff he sees. He's done photography for college football. He does photo galleries of North Dakota stuff for Inside Hockey as well. His camera work has improved as the year has gone on. Has an Instagram account, I believe also at Goon48 on Instagram.
I don't remember what it is.
I'll pull it up.
Just look up Eric Burton. You should be able to find it.
Yeah. I probably should have written this down. Yeah, just look up Eric J. Burton, and that's where you can find all of his stuff at. Again, Goon48 on Twitter. It's his name is Eric J. Burton TSD, which I assume is the Sports Daily, and he's got plenty. He's got plenty of good thoughts on college hockey, plenty of really good perspective on the sport, and on all different levels of it. Eric, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. It was fun.